I didn't want to go live yet. I wanted to put. Okay, that's fine. Already live. Okay. I'm going to work on the website here for just a minute. We are live. I want to welcome our guests and partners from around the world. We have a special guest tonight with us, Lovern Gordon, by way of, let me see if I get this, Tobago, Trinidad. She's in the U.S., and she's going to be sharing with us tonight. Hopefully, she'll also be answering some questions. I am let me see. I'm drinking Red Bull, and I've made sure that I've taken my deep breaths before I got on the broadcast because I can get really excited. So I got to get myself toned down a little bit. All right, the president of LoveLifeNow.org. You have a mini series, a video mini series. It looks like a TV program type thing that's coming out also, and
Yeah,
maybe you
so
can
what that
touch
was
on that.
actually, yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me. And yes, I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean, just above Venezuela, and now live about 25 minutes outside the city of Boston in Massachusetts. And so Instagram, so I'm a survivor of domestic violence, sort of to give this backdrop. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, a child witness to it on the island of Trinidad, and also a young adult uh, survivor. Uh, there's that echo that we were talking about earlier.
Okay. Okay.
But
What I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel the echo here. Let me go ahead. You can keep sharing if you are just. Let me
sure.
see.
So, so I'm also
I'll
a young adult survivor of domestic violence as well. Unfortunately, children that grow up in abusive homes, they tend to go on to become victims or abusers themselves. And I became a victim at the age of 21. And that relationship lasted for 2 years. Thankfully, I was able to escape. And by the time that I escaped, I found us, or I should say, I sought help at an emergency room for the injuries that I had, sustained that particular night. And I, was told that I could get help. And the word help to me was really, really daunting. The idea of police getting involved was scary because for the 2 years in that relationship, I kept quiet. I didn't want anybody to know that I was going through it. And so it was really scary to think that um, police would potentially come knocking at my the building or show up at my job asking questions, which was a professional setting. They might, want to ask me questions at my, school that I was going to school at nights at university, and I really wanted none of that. And so the idea of founding Love Life Now Foundation 10 years later was essentially to really get people pointed in the right direction for help. Um, Help again was scary to me, and I didn't want it to be scary for anybody else. And I wanted to get people acclimated um, about what the idea of help was. So, Love Life Now Foundation was spawned from my own experience, but I really wanted to get people again interested in the conversation about domestic violence, not have it be this big scary thing, not have it be this shameful thing, and really help to try to change the narrative around the issue. Many times people ask, well, why does she stay? Or why did she leave? Or why does he stay? And it's just not as black and white as you think it is. And there are many layers to this conversation. And that's what we try to do in terms of awareness. We're mostly focused on education around the issue. But like I said, we also point people in the right direction for help. Um, and we also host initiatives within our communities to help people greater understand how they can be part of the solution. So Instagram recently found me on their platform alongside three other women of color and profiled us individually for the work that we were doing during Women's History Month via a series called To Get Her Together, but shortened To Get Her. And it was really it was one of those things that you think would never happen to you, and then it does. all because I held my head down and did the work that was innate and passionate, that I was passionate about. So they did, they came out, they hired film crew locally to come and film with me one particular day in October, which was Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which made it all that more poignant, right? And we filmed from about 7 in the morning till about 5 in the afternoon at three different spots, and including here at my home. And the finished product is what you saw, Santos, which was the little over 5 minute film on their flat platform, Instagram for Business. And it basically talked a little bit about my story, but it also talked about the way that, social media played a role in building, what is Love Life Now, which is awareness. We used it for awareness. And so I was just really honored, and it got really great feedback. Many people listened to the little over 5 minute film and have been really, really inspired. And I'm just grateful. I'm truly, truly grateful. So yeah,
So that's how that came about. That's interesting how, wow, how that actually, they found you. You're just busy
yeah,
working your mission. You're just, busy minding your own business, doing your thing.
doing the work, right?
Wow,
And
that's
yeah,
interesting.
and they reached out to me, and the conversation started. I'm not going to lie. When they first reached out, I was skeptical. I'm like, are you really Instagram, or you're just some cover company trying to scam me into signing? I didn't know what to think. But the more
Right.
conversations we had, it was great to ask questions. And, we got to the nitty gritty of it. And I'm like, oh my God, they are really for real. And I guess, like, again, you see, you never think that these things are going to happen to you. And you just, they come up, and you know, you go along with it, and it really helps to help other people. And that's the mission of Love Life Now, right? To help other people understand that where they are is not where they're destined to be. So again, I was just really and hugely honored. And like I said, the three different films, I think there's one woman from Africa and another woman from, God, I can't remember where she's from, but all three different types of businesses that again do their work and have their work unfold on social media. So again, really, really inspired by them, and honored that they chose me to be among the three. 1 second,
Yeah.
sorry.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Yeah, welcome, YouTuber in the making. There's a few other people that are watching. Welcome. If you have a question, you have something that you want to, you're welcome to ask here. We're just sharing. We're really relaxed. It's a relaxed atmosphere. In fact, if you want to take a couple of deep breaths and do some micro yoga while you're listening, that get up, run around, and if you don't get into this thing, you won't really get anything out of it. So,
Right, right.
you also, you've had a major mind shift. I know that in order for you to be doing what you're doing, this is not easy. I know it's not an easy journey. It's not an easy mission. You've had a major
Yeah.
transformation. That's also helped you with you. You've written this book, right? It is a book, The Legacy
I
He
wrote
Left
a
Me.
book. Yes, The Legacy He Left Me. Yeah, so for many years, many folks had heard me share snippets of my personal story, because that's part of the Love Life Now brand, is being transparent about what happened to me. In no uncertain terms, I've never really sought to hold anything back. And so I shared, snippets of workshops, which is another thing that we do through the organization, is we host workshops at high schools, middle schools, colleges, job corporations, wherever, even churches, right? And I share snippets of it on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. And many people over the years had said, you should write a book. And for many years, I discounted them and said, no, it's not the right time. It's not, it's not for me. And really, what I was doing, Santos, during that time, every time somebody said that to me, was I was discounting my story and not understanding that over the years, the snippets of story that I had shared with other people had resonated with them. And that's why they wanted me to write a book. So last year, again during the pandemic, when everybody was sort of settled and in their spaces. And I said, you know what? Why don't I write a book? What's the reason that I'm not doing it? Right? At least I can get everything out in one place. So I left it there. And then maybe about a few months later, I reached out to my girlfriend who had written books before, romance novels, so not anything like this. But I said, when I'm ready to do this, will you help me? And she agreed. She said, yes, absolutely, I will. And we left it there. Then about August time frame, I said, you know what, if I do decide to write a book, I'll call it The Legacy He Left Me, because this issue for me started with my father, who was the abuser against our mother when I was coming up. And he was the one that I learned attitudes and behaviors around relationships and how to form them, right? So the issue of abuse for me started with him, and that's where the name came from. And then I left it there, picked out the name, kind of put it to the side. And then it wasn't until about September, a former industry colleague of mine, I'd worked in the banking and finance world for many years, and left that world officially in 2013 to focus on the organization Love Life Now. And many colleagues of mine, former colleagues of mine, had seen my work, and one of them reached out to me in September and said, listen, I'm starting a publishing company with my wife, and I think your story would be a really good fit from what I've seen over the years for our publishing house. And I want to know if you want to have a conversation with us about potentially signing a book deal. And I said, me? And, because for all the time that I thought about writing a book, I thought that I would self publish. That's what I had seen throughout the years from everybody else that had written books. And so I had a conversation, and the chemistry was there off the bat. And within a month, I was, dotting my E's, dotting my I's, crossing my T's, signing a contract with them to write this book. And here we are. It's now going to be released officially on June 1st, but it's in pre release status as we speak right now at thelegacyheleftme.com.
Oh, wow. So this is fairly new. This is interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did see it at the website. So you have it and lovelifenow.org. It's there also.
Yes.
You can
Yes. On the
there.
booking page. Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
then you said he what was it? He left
The legacy,
uh,
the legacy he
go ahead.
left me. Yeah, so
.com.
it's thelegacyheleftme.com, which is where folks can go pre-order it. And all of the books that people have pre-ordered are going to be delivered the week of June 1st. Which is when it'll be officially on bookshelves and on, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you get books, right? So I'm just really, really excited because it chronicles not only being a child witness to the issue of abuse, but then also, as I said, how people fall into abusive relationships. How easy it can be to become a child, to move from being a child witness to an adult survivor slash victim, right? People think that it's a certain type of person that falls into these types of relationships, and that is certainly not the case. At the time that I ended up becoming a victim, I was working an entry level job in corporate America, and I was also, going to college at nights. So I thought, first of all, I was independent financially. Um, I was self assured. I was confident. And before I knew it, before my eyes, I was becoming this unassured person, this unassertive person, this trying to figure out how did I get here. And by the time, about a year and a half into the relationship, I was completely stuck. I was isolated from family and friends. I was getting physically abused, emotionally abused, and mentally abused, and as well as verbal. And I couldn't understand how I got from one end of the stick to the other. I couldn't make sense of it until I got to my breaking point and decided that I didn't want any more of it. I didn't want to be involved with somebody beating me off and on. I didn't want to be involved with somebody depleting me, mentally, and somebody talking down to me. I just had enough. I had to make a choice the particular night that I escaped. And I did that. I made the choice to leave. And a lot of people don't get that chance, Santos. A lot of people end up becoming tragic victims. How often do you hear on the news that she was getting ready to leave and he killed her? She was getting ready to leave and he killed her, the kids, and himself, right? Because the idea is that how dare you decide to leave me, right? Leaving is the most dangerous time for victims because their abuser say to themselves, well, over my dead body, I can't see you with anybody else. So I'd rather you die, I die, everybody die. And it's really, like I said, a lot of multiple layers that victims have to go through to even get to becoming a survivor. It's not easy and it's not a black and white issue at all. So that's, again, why we stick on this issue, why we try to educate people um, on what the layers are as it relates to domestic violence.
Yeah, and another thing that ties in with what you are sharing is I get, obviously I come from a background of, I come from a background of DV also. And,
Mm,
my major escape was gambling.
yeah.
And there's people, there's some that come and watch my broadcast. And I know, because of domestic violence, because of, this is not, let me say, we need to be aware.
Mm-hmm.
People are hiding, right? People are gambling. People are doing all kinds of things that uh, is an escape. And we're bringing this here. We've got this platform. We've got this program. We have a privilege. In fact, this is an honor to be on this for 30, 40 minutes and just be sharing what we're doing here.
Yeah.
There's so much work. There's so much work that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many. There's only a few laborers, if you will.
Yeah.
I know you've got a big organization. I'm kind of surprised tonight that I didn't see more viewers. But that's just it is. Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes the fire is there. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard for people to get. But we have to continue keep the fire. We got to keep that fire going. Eventually people are going to
Yeah.
see. That's a good fire over there. I think we can get warm over there. So
Right.
that's where
And
we're at.
and
By the way, Natalia, I just want to say hello, Natalia. Shout out to you there, wherever you are. I'm going to let you share a little bit more. I want to bring up a proverb. I usually read a proverb on every Sunday that I do
absolutely.
this. And today's proverb is actually 2 Timothy 1:7, and it reads like this. This is something that I repeat to myself, not just in the morning, but I repeat this to myself numerous times throughout the day because as you Lovern, the importance of mind shift.
Yeah.
We've been through a lot of stuff, and it's really sad because we see a lot of people. Sometimes we want to pull people out of the fire, but we can't.
Yep. Right.
We want to snatch them, but we're right there, so close to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's a very mysterious thing. So we just keep planting the seed. We keep,
Yep.
like I say, I'm failing my way to success. And what is success? Well, we all think success is different. To some it could be a mansion, a lot of money. To me, the real riches are inner peace
Yep.
and wisdom and confidence to be able to make the right decisions today. Because we got to navigate. You've mentioned this in your share. We have to navigate. We're on life's freeway. We are taking exits. We're getting off exits, and we're going back on the on ramps. The
Yeah.
best exits the best exits that we can find. Those are the ones that we need to take. We need to stay away from the bad exits because, like you said, some people don't make it back. They don't get back on the freeway. They got off somehow. They got lost. Next, they're in a casket someplace. They never made
Absolutely.
it. Um, for many years when I was young, I remember my dad. My dad was very, very violent. I'm going to read this proverb. But for many years, my mom, we used to go to the hospital. My mom was always going. This
Mm-hmm.
was back in the 60s and 70s. So
Yeah.
I can kind of relate back 30, 40 years ago. And nobody it's like nobody was. My mom would come home with a black eye, stitches on her finger, a cut, being pushed, and it's like the hospitals. It's really strange, but nobody really intervened, and this went on for
Right,
years. So you
right.
understand today it's a whole different. It's a lot different today.
Quite
Maybe
different.
it could
Yeah.
have been because maybe it could have been because we didn't have the financial means back then. Mostly
Mm-hmm.
poor
Mm-hmm.
people. The rich people, I think, if they have money, it's kind of more of a concern. It's brought out to it's kind of
Yeah.
like we got to fix this or else. But for poor people, it kind of goes under the carpet, and so I'm glad that you're bringing this awareness to the forefront today about this. Very important, extremely important, because this is not just for women and men. This is for gamblers too. People
Yeah.
gamble, prostitutes, people that are all kinds of different areas. Anyways, here, let me read this. For God has not this. I love this. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. A sound mind.
Mm.
And I believe this is Lovern's heart. A sound mind. So many young men, so many young women need a sound mind to make
Mm.
better decisions and to make sure to identify relationships,
Mm.
because we
That
get
aren't
we get
healthy
involved with
for
the
them.
wrong relationships, we become blinded. Next,
Right.
6 months, a year later, we're soul tied to an individual, and it is difficult. It is almost impossible for some people to break free. Anyways, I've shared a little bit there, Laverne. I'm going to give you, time is moving along here. So we were discussing, what would you say has been something difficult that you've come to appreciate on your journey with this life mission? It
Mental
was
health.
difficult. What's that?
Mental health. My mental health. And
Okay.
that's been primarily through the writing process of the book, um, that I realized that it's more precious than any part of my functioning body because it relates to everything, um, from the head go down to your feet. And so I say that because during the writing process, I started October 18th, um, with the writing journey. By November, I got to a place that was really dark. And when I say dark, it was because I was addressing many details from my past, again, chronicling being a child witness up to, being a victim and then surviving and now thriving. And so in addressing those details, many of which I had put to the back of my mind for many years, not because I didn't want to face them head on, it was just because I didn't have to, right? Many times, as I said, I shared many pieces of my story over the years, but they were pieces that I had gotten comfortable with. And I had no problem sharing those pieces. But when I got to writing it and putting it all on paper and connecting the dots to all those pieces, that's where things got really dark because I was confronting things again that I hadn't touched on for a very long
Wow.
time. And it put me in a headspace that had me really all out of sorts. So there was anger, there was sadness, there was pain, there was happiness, there was resentment. There were all these emotions that came rushing at me right around the November timeframe that I realized I couldn't deal with on my own. There was just absolutely no way that I could continue because I was crying sometimes, I was angry sometimes. And so this is infiltrating my regular day to day life. And I knew that I needed to do something. So I started seeking a therapist. And I looked for one between November and I finally got one. I got connected with one that I felt really comfortable with and we vibed really well together in January. And I've been seeing her almost every week, once a week. And it has
Wow.
done for my, not just my mental health, my spiritual self, my whole self. Um, understanding that all of those triggers that I was dealing with back in November, they're probably never going to go away because I've dealt with them over the years. They've popped up here and there at different points in my life, and I didn't really know how to handle them. But now, really unpacking all my stuff with a therapist, I now understand that these all of this trauma, all of the stuff that I've been through, will probably never go away. It may always be here. But I know now how to handle them when they decide to rear their ugly heads, right? So for me, the way that they showed up, and I'll be quite frank, they were in the form of really brutal nightmares. So I was waking up in the middle of the night, sometimes in cold sweats, because the stuff that I just saw in my dreams was something I would wish upon no one. Um, and I couldn't go back to sleep. I've always suffered for a very long time from PTSD in the form of anxiety. So I don't like to have my back to a wall because I like to see the door. I like to see what's coming at me. But I'm also very jumpy. But writing the book around that time frame, I became even more jumpier. So like I was scared of my shadow. Okay. And so things were not things were not good. All right. Just to be
Wow.
quite frank, they were not good. So seeking a therapist was one of the best things that I have ever done for myself. And I'm never looking back. I don't know how long I'm gonna need her, but again, she continues to do wonders for my whole self. Like I said, from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, along with prayer. Right. So I don't want to discount our Father because speaking to him and going directly to him in prayer does offer a ton of solace. But you know, um, he helps those who help themselves, right? And he put
Yes.
therapists on the earth to
Yes.
help us walk that journey, right? So I tell
Yeah.
folks, yes, prayer, absolutely. But if you need that additional one-on-one time with someone, please do not be fearful of reaching out for it. So yeah, I think that's the most recent thing for me that I've had to face head on, and it's sometimes it's still not easy. The nightmares have calmed to some degree. They do pop up here and there, but not as much as they did in October, November. I mean, Santos, it was really brutal stuff that I would wish upon nobody. If you go to bed at night and you think, okay, I'm going to sleep and things are going to be great, and in the middle of the night you're seeing somebody chopping somebody up with a machete, okay, that you cannot stop. You're standing there physically. And what I realize is those types of dreams relate directly back to me being a child witness to the abuse. Okay.
Wow.
I could not help my mother. Okay. Our father was bigger than me. He was very strict. He beat on our older siblings, right? And I saw that as the middle child, and I wanted none of it. So I did as much as I could to be good and to not get beaten. So again, those types of dreams have plagued me in many years over the years. But I understand now how to handle them a little bit better now that I have a therapist on my side.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you also, because sometimes people think that, you got to have it all together and you got to be a professional. I've got licenses, I've got certifications. I get, something that I had to overcome in my life. But today, they're really not a big deal. I mean, it's nice to have these things, but people really want to know how much you really care. They really want to know how
Mm,
much. And I wanted to bring, let me see, there's a question here that I wanted to ask you. I'm getting a little distracted.
it's
I
okay.
wanted to ask you a question about the mission. Uh, yeah, you see, in other words, we need help, right? I mean, just because I'm certified and I'm licensed, and I think, uh, pardon my French, but I'll say this, and this is the way that I feel about myself. I am a effing badass, right?
Hey.
And why do I say that to myself?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't,
Yes.
and I was afraid to say that to myself. Does that mean that I got it all together? Yeah, I got it all together. I got all the money that I need. I got my mansion, my Rolls Royce. I've got all the women. I've got all these things, right? Heck, no, that's not what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about focusing on the true riches, which is peace of mind,
Hmm.
and getting out of these things that we've been through. These
Yeah.
frames of mind that hold us back. We all have trauma. You're
Yeah.
correct, Lovern. We're never going to escape trauma because our minds are like a video recorder. So
Hmm.
everything is going to be there, and this thing's taping, recording 24/7.
Absolutely.
Uh, so what do you say to the individual that's struggling? What would you say to the individual that's struggling? They're hiding. They've gone through domestic violence. They might even be gambling because of that. What would you say?
Understand that there's a problem, right? So acknowledging it first of all is whether you're on the receiving end of the bad behavior, or you're doing it to yourself or somebody else. Understand that there's a problem. So recognizing that I was in a very bad headspace and I could see it infiltrating my daily life was it needed, right? If I didn't say that, right, if I didn't acknowledge that, I wouldn't then go seek a therapist, right? I wouldn't understand to myself that I could not handle it on my own, because a lot of the times we sit there and we think we can. We're like, okay, if I keep it to myself, then that's that you're doing yourself a disservice, because it's not meant
Yeah,
for you to carry that load, right? All of this stuff that you're carrying isn't meant for you to carry. That's why there are therapists. That's why there's clergy that you speak to at your church. That's why there's confessionals if you're Catholic, right? It's for you to unload. And I would say the one of the again the best things that you can do is talk to someone. A lot of the times, even if you're in this type of situation of domestic violence, abusers prey on your silence. They are counting on you never talking to somebody else about what's happening behind closed doors. So, again, speaking to someone, whether you feel comfortable speaking to family, whether you feel comfortable speaking to a close friend, whether you feel comfortable speaking to a domestic violence advocate at a domestic violence agency, the choice is yours. But please talk, speak up, acknowledge there's an issue, and speak up. So that's my advice. I mean, and it really doesn't matter what trauma you've gone through. It could be sexual assault, it could be gambling, it could be domestic violence. The best thing that you can do is say something, um, unload it.
okay. Unload it. Get it asked.
Absolutely.
Give me let me see. Give me a little of everything. How can parents best approach an uh, adult child female who is in an abusive situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So and so this is I myself, if you're just joining, I myself am a survivor of a 2-year relationship, and I was a child witness to it for many years, living on an island. And so the abusive situation here in the States, after a while, because I became so isolated, I had this mentality that I was in this Bonnie and Clyde situation. It was me and him against the world, because when you talk sometimes to parents or siblings and you tell them a little bit about what's going on, right? They get upset. The parent gets upset. Your abuser comes to you and they say, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do what I did. It'll get better. I won't do it again. I love you." Your parent or a sibling on the outside, you go to them and you say, "We made up. Everything's good." All they're thinking about, the parent or the sibling, is that this person hurt you, and they're still mad. They're not interested that you made up with this person who they know is bad for you. They on the outside looking in that this is a bad, messed up situation. So they're going to continue carrying that hurt. The child now is not going to want to come tell the parent anything else from beyond that, because they believe that they're going to criticize and judge, right? So they keep to themselves. My advice to the parents is that you have them realize that there is a problem. One way you can do that is directing them, say, look, I just went on this domestic violence agency website. If I would love to know where, give me a little of everything, is what city they're in. Because I would say, whatever city you're in, you go and you look up the domestic violence agency in your area. You can do that by calling either the hotline here, 1-800-799-SAFE, or you can Google it on Google. It will come up. So finding out what the domestic violence agency is in your area and saying to that child, look, I found this, I have this website. When you have a minute, can you please just take a look? Because sometimes what it takes is for someone to see it in black and white. Maybe they go onto the website and they see all the signs, the red flags of an abusive relationship, and they see he checks up on me all the time. He's jealous. He has an explosive temper. He checks my phone all the time. He is very possessive. He wants to know where I'm at. If they see all these check marks and they're like, check, 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 those are all me, then it might jump out to them to be like, oh God, I need to get out. Like, this is me. All of these are me. I'm in a domestic violence relationship. So finding out what the resources in your town, giving it to them, whether you send it in a text, whether you tell them, in person, whether you say, when you have some time, I'd like for you to visit this domestic violence agency with me. I will go with you. Maybe they need to hear it from a third party, right? But being a non judgmental ear is where it starts. And saying that I care about you, I love you, and I want the best for you. If, again, when you have time, I just want you to peruse this website when you have a minute. And granted, you can't make the decision for them. They have to make the decision for themselves. And I think that's what's most frustrating for parents or siblings or friends. When you're in this type of relationship, you do not feel like, uh, you know, they're going to ever make the choice to leave. They at some point have to make the decision for themselves. And I know that it's frustrating, but that's what has to happen. So if you can empower them to make the decision on their own, then you might have a chance of reaching them. And doing so non-judgmentally. That's one of the biggest things, because being judgmental only pushes them to the abuser further. And that's unfortunately where it's at. If you can find out what the resources in your local area, you can do that by calling me, 888-LLN-9876, 888-LLN-9876, and I can help point you in the right direction for help. That's part of what we do. Or you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, or you can Google it on your own. If you don't want to, talk directly, or text me, you can text that number that I mentioned as well. Um, but again, if you can point them in the right direction of that resource and say, listen, when you have time, I would love for you to just look, again, just coming to them, non-threatening, telling them what to do, because again, they're already getting that from their abuser, right? They're telling them what to do. They're telling them how to feel. They're telling them what to think. So if you can, again, empower them and put the power in their um, direction, then you're doing the best that you can do.
And your let me ask you this: does your book touches on this subject, doesn't it?
The book is a guide. It's literally a walking guide about how to leave abusive relationships safely. I was not able to leave safely. I thought that when I sought help for my injuries at the hospital the night that I escaped, I thought I was doing the right thing by saying I just want to go home, not involving the police. That unfortunately was a mistake, because when you leave abusive relationships, that is the most dangerous time. Okay. Abusers are thinking, how dare you leave me? Once again, they want to see you dead. They want to see you hurt. They want to make sure that you don't are not living a happy life without them. So that turned into me having to physically call the police 2 weeks later because he tried to break into my apartment, but not before he cut the phone lines in the basement of my building. He wanted to make sure I had no access to the outside world. Um, and then it subsequently turned into stalking, which is when I finally filed a restraining order. But many people don't get that chance. He essentially adhered to the restraining order, but many people don't. So the book really details what leaving looks like, how domestic violence agencies can play a huge part um, in getting you out safely with safety planning, with figuring out what next best steps are, how an advocate can go with you to court. I mean, it talks about all of these things that I was not privy to when I was leaving. But then again, it also shows, as somebody says, I think it's best to nip it before it starts. And that unfortunately is not always the case. You miss a lot of the red flags when you're in the beginning stages of these types of relationships. They want you to see the good. Okay, they want you to see an abuser is not going to come flat out and just slap you from nowhere. Typically that's not the way it happens, so that you can then make a decision to be like, oh no, you slapped me, I'm out of here. That's not the way it works. It's almost like they groom you, right? They start off very nice, sweet. They start asking questions, or why are you talking so long on the phone with this guy? um and you're like, oh, well, I can see how that could be offensive to my man. So I'm going to stop talking to my friend who I've known for 20 plus years or 15 years or 10 years. I'm going to stop talking to my friend less because it's really offensive to him. Then the next thing you know, it's because, right, Mark says, how come the abuse started? Right. So essentially, again, you're missing all of the red flags in the beginning. The next thing you know, they're questioning how the dress you're wearing. Is it too short? They're questioning your hairdo. Well, that's too flashy. That's too glamorous. So you're trying to attract other people besides me, right? So there's all these things that sort of develop. And you, as the victim, you're saying to yourself, well, maybe I could, do less of this. Maybe it is too, attracting and wanted attention, and before you know it, you're mentally being brainwashed, as somebody said, to believe that you are part of the problem. And so you're trying to fix things as you go along. He said or she said that I'm doing this, so I'm going to take myself back and I'm going to try to fix and work on these things. And it's nothing to do with you, it's all to do with them. But you're not seeing that in the beginning, and before you know it, it's too far gone for you to even begin to unravel what's happened.
There's there's so much here. You see Herbie Mack. Wow! Don't forget, hit that thumb up. Keep it up with the amazing interviews.
Hi,
Thank you.
Herbie. I did a show with Herbie a couple weeks ago. Shout out to Herbie Mack.
Yes, the Just Believe podcast. So
Yes,
Just Believe
yes,
podcast. Put in a little
that's
plug in there.
it.
Um, yeah, there's so again, we have so much. Here's a challenge to all of us. I know we're getting close to the end of the broadcast here, but here's a challenge for all of us. I believe there's a challenge today for people to reach people. There's a lot of information out there. In fact, there's too much information. I say this once in a while. I like saying this. I think us adults are too growed up. GROWED. Sometimes we're
I
too
feel
growed
it.
up,
Yeah,
and we really need to use our imagination. We need to kind of get back to that childlike faith that we see in children. They're even losing it too. I love playing with children. My grandchildren. I notice that sometimes it's a challenge for them because I want to play, but what's happening to them? They're losing their imagination because of all these things, the information, the video games,
yeah,
and all this stuff. So we have a challenge. And the challenge is to get information in front of people, but to make it simpler. We have to find ways to get information in front of people, right? But there has to be a simplicity about it. Because
Mhm.
I'll tell you one thing about me. I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of writing, I do a lot of breathing, I do all kinds of stuff, and people are not willing to do what I do. They're just not willing to do it. But
Yeah.
I find that I need to put it together simpler. So that's my challenge with my life mission. I know that uh, uh, friends friends that are involved in the area of domestic violence and any of these other areas that deal with addiction, bad
Mhm.
habits, and all of these things. And I
Yep.
deal with it. I even deal with it within my own family.
Sure.
Sometimes it's hard,
Yeah.
just because we are excelling, just because we may. And I admit, I'm living my dream, but I'm not where I need to be. Right? I
Right.
still have many challenges, just like we all
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
We just we need to. It's like we need to turn on belief, and we need to step up and say, okay, what is it that I need to do? What is it? What's my share? Lovern, Herbie. I met Lovern through someone by the name of Judy. And I met Judy at an event, and we've been kind of networking. My mindset is a lot different today than the way it used to be because I come from a very very violent background, so I understand that
Mhm.
very well. But we need to educate. We need to find
Yeah.
all like the organization that you have. You
Right.
know, even that video thing that I saw, the video
Yeah,
series with
the
the book and all
Instagram.
that.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
thought that was really cool. It was impactful within
Right.
5 minutes. Within
just
just 5 minutes, what it was.
and I and
So
I've been
our
telling
challenge is that.
yeah, so I've been telling folks that that Instagram for business feature really is a book trailer. That really sort of sums up sort of what the summary of the book is. I appreciate you, Herbie, as are all of you that do podcasts and do this work, giving a platform to folks that are able to listen and hear, right? And like Santos said, it's just breaking down the information. A lot of what we do through awareness is just putting little snippets and bits and pieces because attention spans are not what they used to be, right? So 1 minute videos, sharing little pieces of this work, um, what it was like escaping in 1 minute, how it was not easy to go seek help and tell the truth initially. 1 minute video of what it was like being a child witness to abuse. 1 minute video of why it's not it, why the most dangerous time for a victim is when they decide to leave. These 1 minute hits, right, that are just getting people the to the point of what that pertinent piece of issue is. One of our most recent um, Instagram shares was around the issue of domestic violence shelters. So, I'm talking a lot about domestic violence agencies, but a lot of people hear that and the first thing that they think about is shelter. And if you're a victim, right, at the point where you get to a hospital or a police station and you hear the word, well, you should go to a shelter to keep you and your children safe. The first word that I thought when I heard about shelter was big open room, bunch of people I don't know. I don't want that, right? So that share opened up why that myth around shelter, domestic violence shelters specifically, is wrong. They are not that. Domestic violence shelters are set in houses. Everybody has their own bedroom and they can only take about 7 to 12 families depending on the size of the house. You share the kitchen and you share the common areas, the living room. So just sharing these little 1 minute snippets of what, the work looks like. So again, help when you decide to seek it is not daunting. It's not scary. That in itself, right, opens up a little bit more awareness. And again, having these platforms where people are able to come up. Somebody said the rates of domestic violence are up during COVID. Thank you for sharing that. um
Yeah.
yes, especially in the beginning, I think systems have gotten a little bit better over the period of the last year to finally to really get help to people where they're at. But yes, during COVID, and when this had initially just hit, it was because victims were social distancing with their abusers. So their abuser is not going to work, So they're home now and they're hearing the kids yelling. They're hearing the kids having to work, work out their homework. They're getting frustrated. And who are they taking it out on? Victims, right? So even
Yeah.
victims, they had the opportunity to get out and go to work for 8 hours a day. They couldn't go anywhere because again, they had to stay home. They had the ability to go to their sister's house if things were getting a little hot at the house. They couldn't do that anymore because we were social distancing. So yes, in the beginning, it was very frustrating for a lot of domestic violence agencies to try to pivot and figure out how they can help. It's one of the biggest reasons that we enabled a toll-free line that people could text, not just call, but text. Because again, you're in the house with your abuser. You can't freely pick up the phone and call for help. So texting would have been a bit, more. It might have been more apt to do so, and a lot of people found it, that way helped. Um, so again, like with everything else, sort of hitting us at not, case in point, not physically hitting, but with everything coming at us at the beginning of March of last year and April, people really were in a really really bad place. And I have to say, thankfully, that systems have gotten to a point where they're able to address people, even though they're not, in their typical formats. They can't call, they can't text. They're meeting people where they're at during COVID. So thank you for that. That is quite the observation. And yes, rates were up. They're said, and I can't even say that they've leveled out. Right, they're back to being high. People are able to call now. They're able to text now. Um, but again, it's not going anywhere until we, as a community, understand that we have the ability to help people right where they're at. Is it our responsibility to save people based on our judgments? I'm not sure that question, what that question essentially means. Um, is it our responsibility to save people based on our judgments? Um, if you're saying that, so to me, domestic violence is everybody's problem. That's my take, right? So to turn a blind eye on, again, being a part of the solution right from where you're at can mean in your neighborhood, you recognize that a husband or a partner is being very possessive. It's your responsibility to look out for the wife or the neighbor. A lot of the times you hear these stories on the news that says, they talk to the neighbor and they say, the neighbor says, I never knew that this was happening. They always look like such a great family. She always looked so well put together and I never saw anything. It's because we never took a minute to see things, right? Be cognizant of who your neighbors are. Be antiquated with what's happening in your community. How can you be a part of the solution? During COVID, did you check on your neighbors? Did you leave a note saying on their door? I'm not saying that you had to do this, but these are just ways that I'm saying we as communities can help and be a help to other people, right? Did you put a note on a neighbor's door saying, if anything is wrong, please call me? If you need to get driven somewhere to the hospital, you can call me, right? How are we being community based? How can we be part of the solution? So yes, okay. You model said, I feel it is our responsibility. Yes, it is our responsibility. Um, I feel if I have a problem, if I'm trying to save everyone, I question my motives myself. Um, it's all right. So it's not your job to save everybody, right? You can't do that, right? Um, what if abusive relationships are normal for some people? Is it our responsibility to convince someone is in an abusive relationship? Is it okay to judge? It is absolutely not okay to judge. I mean, if you're just going by the basic premise of the Bible, right? If we're throwing that in there, um, judge not, right? I mean, would you want somebody judging you based on your life situation, whatever that is? And I don't care what it is, right? Um, it's how can you be a non-judgmental help to someone is what you should be asking. And it's certainly not your
Yeah.
job to save somebody. but to be understanding in that person, to walk a mile in that person's shoes. That's the only thing I would ask. Walk a mile in their shoes and try to put yourself in their position, and understand again that this issue is not a black and white one. If they're in an abusive relationship and they think it's normal, they didn't get that way overnight. This didn't just pop up for them. This has been months and months of brainwashing, and it's going to take a very long time for them to for them to unlearn the behavior that they've uh, uh, been taught for quite some time. I mean, at the core of domestic violence is fear, right? Fear and power and control. So if you're
Yep.
living in a situation where somebody is telling you each and every day, if you leave, I will kill you. If you leave, I will find you. If you leave, I will kill the kids. If you leave, I will kill the dog. If you leave, I'll hurt your mother. If you leave, I will take all the money. If you leave, I will make you look like you're a bad parent. You have zero clue, unfortunately, what's going on behind closed doors. So if that person is telling you or they're acting like this abusive relationship is normal, trust and believe it isn't because that they think, oh, it's a great thing to be here. No, they know that they're in a bad, messed up place. They
Mhm.
just don't know how to get out. So it's up to you as the person on the outside looking in to show them. These are the ways that you can get help. I've spoken, why don't you can absolutely pick up the phone, call a domestic violence agency and say, listen, if I get this person to come with me to come visit you, what's going to happen? Like, figure out the lay of the land so that when you present it to them, it's not so crazy looking. Again, it's not daunting. The idea of help is not daunting. If you go onto a domestic violence website again and you present it to them, maybe that's what they need. Maybe they just want to hear from somebody else that you who may have been judgmental to them for quite some time. Maybe they want to hear from a third party that isn't non-judgmental. So again, that's the biggest thing that I can say to people on the outside looking in, whether you're a parent, whether you're a friend, whether you're a cousin, a sister, a colleague, please, please, please listen and offer suggestions of help rather than trying to blame, shame, or criticize how this person is trying to maneuver this. They really don't know how. They're only hearing from their abuser, and you may be the only support that they may potentially have.
Wow. And with that, I'm going to have to let Lovern have the last words here because we've come to the end of the broadcast. Actually, I've got something that I need to take care of, actually, a kind of an emergency type thing. Anyways, I do want to thank all of you. We're going to have Lovern. We'll have Lovern on again. She'll share a little bit, maybe some excerpts of her book. I believe her book has a plan in it. And it's all
Yes,
about educating. It would be good to be able to get this education early on in the schools, which they have some
yeah,
programs. I don't think that they're very effective. And it would be good to be able to kind of bolster that early on
yeah,
in schools. I know for me, my life would have turned out a lot differently. I'm grateful where I
yes.
am today, but I do believe that there's, the simplicity,
Prevention.
exactly, prevention, awareness.
Mm-hmm,
As you said, you guys are like a gap.
mm-hmm,
Also,
mm-hmm.
there's needs here. Those of you that truly care, you are a philanthropist. You care about helping and supporting organizations. Check out lovelifenow.org and support. If this is spoken to your heart, my friends, I know it speaks to me. So with that said, I will end the broadcast, Lovern. I really appreciate having you on the broadcast, and we'll
I
visit
appreciate
again.
you having me. Yes. Yeah,
To
thank
all
you
my
so much,
guests,
Santos.
you're welcome, Herbie, K6. There's Jim Umoto, Mark Cameron, K6. There was Nydia. Thank you, Gulf Hulk, for the. And by the way, if you send me your email address, send me an address. I'd love to send you a little journal. You can put a little message inside. It's just a little token of my gift, my thanks for the donation there. And who else? Give me a little of everything. Mark Cameron, we went through that. Natalia Donis. All right, my friends, until my next episode, Solutions and Answers is your place where you can find steps, where you can find answers and stay motivated. I'll see you next Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Lovern.
Appreciate you.